The first time I realized something was wrong wasn't when my son told me the vacation was without me. It was later when I understood they still expected me to pay for it. That truth didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, the way betrayal often does in families that have learned how to smile through it. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Chains channel team, based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotions, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. My name is Loretta Caldwell. By the time you reach my age, you learn which moments deserve your energy and which ones don't. I live alone in Portland, in a small place I chose because it's manageable and because it's mine. I pay my bills on time. I don't borrow. I don't ask. For years. That independence has made me the dependable one in my family, the person everyone assumes will keep things from tipping too far in any direction. Thanksgiving has always been treated like proof that we're still close. Not warm, exactly. Just functional. We show up. We eat. We avoid the subjects that make voices tighten. I've learned how to move through the day without expecting too much from it. That year felt no different. I drove over with a pie balanced carefully on the seat beside me, already rehearsing the familiar rhythm of the afternoon. We had been talking about a vacation for weeks by then. Flights, dates, little details that made it feel settled, like something already decided. Nothing formal, just enough to let it sit in the air as a shared plan. At the table, the conversation drifted the way it always does. Work, traffic, who needed a break? I remember thinking that everything felt almost easy. That was when I let myself lean in, just a little, and mentioned how much I was looking forward to the trip. The reaction came quickly, too quickly. Laughter moved around the table before I could make sense of it, and my son's voice followed, light and confident, as if he were clarifying something everyone already understood. The vacation, he explained, was for family. Without me, no one corrected him. No one shifted uncomfortably. Plates kept moving. The moment passed as if nothing important had been revealed. I smiled and stayed still, letting my silence hang long enough to make them feel it. Dinner moved along the way it always did, with overlapping voices and half-finished thoughts. I listened more than I spoke, nodding at the right moments, letting the noise carry me. When the talk shifted to time off and travel, it felt natural. We'd been circling that subject for weeks. After all, I set my fork down and leaned forward just enough to be part of it. I can't wait for our vacation. I meant it the way I always do, carefully, without claiming too much space. The words had barely landed before my son laughed. Not sharply, not cruelly. It was the kind of laugh that assumes agreement. He didn't look at me when he answered. "It's for family," he added, then tipped his glass slightly, as if clarifying a detail. "Without you," the table reacted before I could. A burst of laughter rolled through, loose and unguarded. My mother smiled into her napkin. My brother shook his head like it was clever. Plates clinked. Someone reached for the gravy. I waited for a pause, for a correction, for anyone to step in and smooth it over. No one did. My son kept eating, completely at ease. He'd delivered the line and moved on, confident it would stand. The laughter softened into chatter, and the conversation slid forward without me. I felt it then, not a shock, exactly, but a tightening. The kind you get when a door closes quietly and you're still standing on the wrong side. I kept my expression steady. Years of practice helped with that. "I see," I offered, light enough to pass as casual. No one responded. The space where my voice had been filled itself with other things. My mother glanced at me, then away. That small movement told me more than any explanation would have. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an awkward joke that went too far. It was something already agreed upon, carried out with a smile. I reached for my napkin and folded it carefully. I should head out, I added, keeping my tone even. My son finally looked up. Already long day, I replied, rising. Chairs shifted, but no one tried to stop me. No one asked me to sit back down. I put on my coat, feeling every eye on me and none of them with me. As I walked toward the door, the conversation resumed behind my back, seamless and loud. The sound followed me out, settling in my chest as I closed the door and stepped into the night, carrying with me the certainty that whatever this was, it hadn't been accidental. I walked to my car with my shoulders set the way they've been for years, upright. Careful, practiced. Inside, I sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel, breathing until the tightness eased enough to drive. The house behind me stayed loud. No one followed. At home, I hung my coat and set my keys down in the same place I always do. Habit has a way of pretending everything is normal. I poured a glass of water and took 2 steady sips, then picked up my phone. I typed his name and started a message. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Delete. If I crossed a line, I didn't mean to. Delete. We've been talking about this trip for weeks. Delete. Each sentence sounded smaller than the last. Each one bent toward making the moment easier for everyone else. I stared at the blank screen, waiting for the right words to arrive. They didn't. I remembered other nights, other explanations. The times I'd softened my voice to keep the peace. The times I'd clarified intentions that were already clear. None of those efforts had protected me. They had only taught people how much I was willing to carry. My phone buzzed once. A message from my sister-in-law flashed on the screen. I didn't open it. I set the phone face down on the counter and left it there. I moved through the room, straightening a chair, rinsing a glass that didn't need rinsing. The smile I'd worn at the table lingered on my face like a habit I couldn't break, even alone. By the time I turned off the lights, the decision had settled without ceremony. I wasn't going to explain what didn't confuse them. I wasn't going to chase a place I'd already been told I didn't have. It took longer than I expected for the anger to arrive. At first, there was only memory, lining itself up without drama. I thought about the first time I covered a gap. My son had been short on a flight home after college. I'll send it back next week, he'd promised, already distracted by something else. I transferred the money without comment. Next week came and went. I told myself it didn't matter. There were other moments after that. A rental car that cost more than planned. A hotel deposit that had to be secured before midnight. Each time, the explanation was brief and confident, as if my agreement was assumed. You're good for it. My sister-in-law once remarked with a smile that didn't ask permission. I smiled back because that was easier than correcting her. I never offered help loudly. I never announced it. I just stepped in when things tilted. That became my role without anyone needing to name it. At a birthday dinner years ago, my son had leaned over and murmured, "You've always got us covered." He meant it as reassurance. I heard it as expectation. When I didn't respond, he added, "You don't mind?" Right. The pause was small, but it mattered. I shook my head and let the conversation move on. I told myself I was choosing generosity. I told myself family meant flexibility. What I didn't notice was how rarely anyone checked whether I still wanted to choose it. Over time, the requests stopped sounding like requests at all. They arrived fully formed, already decided. We'll figure it out later. It's temporary. It's not a big deal. Those phrases piled up quietly, each one light on its own, heavy together, sitting alone after Thanksgiving. I could finally see the pattern without softening it. I had paid to keep things smooth. I had paid to avoid discomfort. Somewhere along the way, helping had stopped being something I offered and become something they counted on. The next morning, I opened my banking app with no particular plan. I wasn't searching for proof. I was checking balances the way I always do. Careful, habitual. That's when I saw it. the account I rarely thought about anymore, sitting quietly beneath the others. My mother had helped me open it decades ago, back when everything felt less complicated, just in case. She'd told me then, it's better if I can access it in an emergency. At the time, it felt practical. It felt loving. The account was still there. Still active. Still shared. I tapped into the details and felt my chest tighten. Her name was listed right beside mine, unchanged by time or distance. I hadn't used it in years, but the balance wasn't small. I'd let it sit there as a cushion, telling myself it was for unexpected trouble. I never asked who decided what counted as trouble. I called the bank's customer service line and spoke with a woman whose voice stayed calm and precise. Yes, it's a joint account, she explained after verifying my information. Both holders have full access. Full access. The phrase stayed with me after the call ended. I didn't close the account. Not yet. I moved most of the money into my personal account, the one with my name alone on it. I set alerts for every transaction, every attempt, every movement above a small amount. Each confirmation felt deliberate, controlled. I imagined confronting my mother, demanding an explanation before anything had happened. The image felt premature, almost generous. Instead, I chose to wait. Whatever this was, I wanted to see it clearly, without interference. Before I named it, the alert came in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. I was folding laundry when my phone vibrated on the counter, sharp and insistent. I wiped my hands and glanced at the screen. Withdrawal attempt, $6,500. For a moment, I didn't move. The number sat there, precise and deliberate. This wasn't groceries. This wasn't a mistake. It was the kind of amount chosen because it fit something exactly. I opened the app and followed the details. The request had been made in person, at a branch near my son's neighborhood. The location felt intentional, like someone standing confidently at a counter, expecting the transaction to go through. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was the family group chat. My sister-in-law had posted, "Almost done booking, just waiting on the final payment." A few seconds later, my brother added, "Once that clears, we're all set." Then my mother chimed in, "I'm handling it." I stared at those 3 messages until they blurred together. Handling it. The words were light, reassuring, practiced. I could picture her saying them with the same tone she used when smoothing over a disagreement or dismissing a concern. Nothing to worry about, already taken care of. I tapped back into the banking app and confirmed what I already knew. The withdrawal was tied to the joint account, the one she still had access to, the one I had moved money out of quietly, hoping I was wrong about why I needed to. I called the bank. After the usual verification, the representative's voice lowered just slightly. "There's a pending teller withdrawal," she explained, "because it's a joint account. The other holder is authorized." Authorized. That word landed hard, so this was intentional. I replied. My voice sounded steady, even to me. "Yes," she confirmed. "It's waiting on final approval due to the amount." I ended the call and sat down at the table, the pieces finally locking into place. The laughter at Thanksgiving, the confidence in my son's voice, the ease with which they discussed bookings and payments. None of it had been careless. They hadn't just planned a vacation without me, they had planned it with my money, assuming I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text the group chat. I went straight back to the bank line and asked to speak to someone who could see the pending request in real time. After the verification steps, a different representative came on. Her voice was calm, trained for situations that usually unravel. "I see the withdrawal," she confirmed. "Because it's a joint account. The other holder has the right to complete it unless the account is closed." Closed. The word felt final in a way nothing else had all week. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the wall. For years, I'd told myself that account was a safety net. Something there if anyone needed help. What I was seeing now was that it had become a shortcut, a way around asking, a way around respect. What's the fastest way to stop it? I asked, keeping my tone level. If you close the account immediately, she replied. The withdrawal will be declined. All linked access will end at once. Then do it, I said. No pause, no explanation. She walked me through the process, her keyboard clicking steadily as she confirmed my identity again. Once it's closed, it can't be reopened. The other holder will lose access permanently. I understand, I replied. I understood more than she could hear. She continued. Would you like to open a new account under your name only? Yes, I answered, and issue new cards. I want everything separated. She confirmed each step. Careful and thorough. When she finished, there was a brief silence on the line. The account is now closed. She told me, the withdrawal request has been canceled. I exhaled slowly, feeling something loosen that I hadn't realized was clenched. My phone lit up a second later with a notification. Withdrawal declined. Almost immediately, it started ringing. I didn't pick up. I sat there for a moment longer, listening to the quiet of my own home. The safety net they'd been counting on was gone. Not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because I finally understood what it had cost me to keep it in place. I didn't answer the calls. I opened the family group chat instead, the one that had stayed busy with plans I wasn't part of. My hands were steady as I took a screenshot of the bank notification. Making sure the amount and the status were clear, I sent the image without a caption. Then I typed one sentence, "Pay without me." The chat went silent for a few seconds, long enough to feel deliberate. Then the messages started stacking up. "What is this?" my sister-in-law wrote. My brother followed. "Why would you do that?" My son's name appeared next, then disappeared, then appeared again. "This is ridiculous," he typed. It was temporary. My mother's message landed last. "You didn't have to handle it this way. Handle it." The word echoed the one she'd used earlier, as if the problem was my timing, not their intent. "I already did," I replied, and put the phone face down on the table. It buzzed again almost immediately. Missed calls. Notifications. Voices trying to pull me back into a conversation that had never included me when it mattered. From the other room. The quiet held. The balance had shifted in a way they hadn't planned for. They were reacting now, scrambling to regain access, to reframe what they'd tried to do as reasonable. I didn't respond again. The sentence was enough. The calls kept coming. One after another, my phone lighting up with names that hadn't needed me until now. "Pick up," my brother's voicemail urged. "We need to talk this through." My mother followed, her voice tight and careful. "You're making this much harder than it has to be." Then my son. "You embarrassed us." He left in a message that skipped over apology and landed straight on accusation. "You could have handled it quietly." Quietly. As if that hadn't been the expectation all along. I didn't respond. I let the phone rest on the counter while the notifications stacked. When the doorbell rang that evening, sharp and impatient, I knew they'd decided conversation was easier in person. I checked the camera and saw them standing in the hallway. My mother was in front, arms folded, already rehearsing her expression. My son stood behind her, jaw set. My brother paced, phone in hand. "Loretta, open the door." My mother called, knocking again. "This isn't how family acts," my son added. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I stayed where I was. The lock didn't move. My brother leaned closer to the door. "We can fix this," he offered, softer now. You just need to unlock the account. Unlock. The word told me everything. I opened my notes app instead and wrote down the time they arrived, who was there, and how long they stayed. When they finally left, frustrated and loud enough for a neighbor to glance out, I saved the door footage and backed it up. Later that night, I typed a short message and sent it to each of them separately. Do not come to my home again. Any communication going forward needs to be in writing. There were replies. None of them acknowledged what they'd tried to do. None of them asked how I felt. They focused on consequences, on inconvenience, on how my decision had disrupted their plans. I read them once, then turned off the phone. The fear I'd felt earlier had thinned into something steadier. Access was gone. And with it, the illusion that they'd ever handled no with grace. The confirmation came quietly. My sister-in-law posted less. My brother stopped sharing screenshots. 2 days later, my son left a voicemail that skipped the anger and went straight to damage control. We had to cancel, he muttered. Deposits are gone. Flights didn't transfer. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to negotiate. A week after that, I booked a small trip for myself. No group chat, no coordination. Just a few days I chose because they fit my life. When my mother finally texted, the tone had softened into something careful. We'll talk when you're ready, she wrote. I read it once and let it sit. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. I learned something late, but it stuck. Help that costs you your voice isn't kindness. Family that only recognizes you when you're useful isn't closeness. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're definitions. They tell people where you end so you can begin again without apology. If this story resonates, take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, or subscribe. Sharing it helps others recognize patterns they've been taught to ignore. I didn't take anything from them. I stopped giving what they felt entitled to. They didn't miss my presence. They missed my resources. And once I understood that, choosing myself didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace.